Now for a review of what's happening in the headlines today in the papers around the world, let's bring in Constance Ikwoku, our in-house analyst. How are you, Constance? Good morning.
I am very well. Good morning, Yolanda. Very white this morning. White looks good on you. And
Thank
this
you very
was
much.
Cream. It's close to white as well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and then Charles in brown.
With white right inside.
Yes, yes, definitely. You all look bright. Okay, to look at the papers read of this morning, we have Ekweremadu. He is a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with this day. At WEF Davos, Shettima global leaders target $29 trillion the African economy by 2050. Vice President Kashim Shettima was in Davos at the World Economic Forum, where he joined other world leaders to push for the full implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement to boost Africa's economy to $29 trillion by 2050. Nigeria will spearhead the AFCFTA, he promised. The president of WEF also spoke about the transformative potential of AFCFTA for Africa. And I remember very vividly when the late Ambassador Chiedu Osakwe, Nigeria's chief negotiator and director general of the Nigerian Office for Trade Negotiations, was fighting and pushing for the AFCFTA to be adopted by African countries. It took a lot of work and heavy lifting because he understood the implications for the continent trading with one another and also having a framework to be able to do that, including building value chains across the continent. So now that we are talking about the AFCFTA, it will take more than work to really make it happen. And this work has to be done by Africans themselves, EO.
Well, I think the critical question here is Africa actually ready? Is Africa ready to take advantage of the opportunities, that is presented in the African Continental Free Trade Area? Well, for me, I think particularly Nigeria, which is presumably the giant of Africa economically in terms of our economic size, I think we are not ready. For Nigeria particularly, which is Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, and a couple of countries across Africa that is supposed to drive economic growth to the continent in competing with the rest of the world. For Nigeria, I doubt if we are ready. We are still battling with the electricity crisis. We are battling with Telecom's price hike, battling with every basic thing. And what we export to the rest of the world is basically crude oil. And it is only just late last year that we are able to find our feet in trying to somehow averagely refined crude when Dangote came on stream. So for me, I think we are really not ready because the vice president is talking about digital, taking advantage of the digital economy and trying to capitalize on it to strengthen our competitive edge. As I said, I doubt if we are really ready to compete at that stage.
I want to come in here and just really strongly disagree because just this week our first shipment under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area reached Mombasa, and when we're talking about leveraging digital economy and digital successes, most of Africans' unicorns are Nigerian companies, and so I don't believe we're not ready. We're leading in certain areas. Yes, we have issues, infrastructure issues, electricity issues, but I don't think Nigeria is not ready. We've already begun.
Well, sometimes I think about some of these lofty policies. I mean, previously we used to talk about electricity for all by the year 2000, and then we moved it forward by 10 years. And then, of course, we have the Millennium Development Goals. Have we actually fulfilled that yet? And then, of course, this is a 25-year plan between 2025 and 2050. It's 25 years. Are we really going to, do we have the political will? Yes, the potential is there, but do we have the political will to drive it all the way?
But AFCFTA is more than lofty. This is serious business.
Oh, yes.
And it extends beyond Nigeria.
Yes.
I mean, Ambassador Chiedu Osakwe late, he died at the age of 64 in 2019. That man chaired these negotiations I was very much aware of the work that it took to get it to where it is now. So I think irrespective of Nigeria, a lot of African countries are moving ahead.
Yes.
What needs to be done needs to be done, and this continent needs to trade with one another. We're talking about flights, for instance. You want to go from here to Kenya or, you know, some other African country.
Oh, yes.
You have to go to Europe before you come back. And yet, if you do the work that it requires to unleash the potentials within this continent, you don't even need other countries to get to where you're going.
Don't forget the exorbitant flight tickets.
Right, right. So I mean, Nigeria can step up to the plate. If it doesn't step up, I think other African countries are stepping up.
And that's what I find really disturbing as a Nigerian.
Right. Okay. So the Punch newspaper this morning, another very interesting story. Kano Niger Republic Rail Project. Communities tackle FG over compensations for 3,252 owners. Project continues despite Nigeria and Niger tension. This is the $1.96 billion Kano Maradi Rail project financed by the African Development Bank to run through 122 communities in 25 local government areas in Nigeria and 11 communities in Niger Republic. This project is expected to be completed by 2026, and displaced persons are not satisfied with the compensation paid to them. This project was commissioned under former President Muhammadu Buhari due to his personal interest in it. Nigeria is not fully connected locally to unleash its own economic potential. There's so much that can be done within this continent, and we've borrowed heavily to connect to Niger Republic. I mean, it speaks to our priorities and the power that public officials have to make decisions on our behalf. It doesn't mean that Nigeria and Niger shouldn't be connected, but there's so much that needs to be done in terms of connecting, whether it's Western Nigeria to Eastern Nigeria to Northern Nigeria. There's so much.
Yes, I think the problem we have as a country is when you have political leaders that will put forward their personal interest, you know, in considering projects. For example, former President Muhammadu Buhari, did tell all Nigerians that he's from Maradi in Niger Republic. And then you go to the African Development Bank, get a loan of over $1.5 billion to do that rail that is going to run through Kano, Jigawa, Katsina, and then to Marida. For me, that is almost like a misplaced project, when even Abuja is yet to be connected to Itakpe in Kogi State, when the rail from Lagos down to Oyo State, Ibadan, is yet to be connected to the nation's capital. And then we are unable to connect the nation's capital to the south, south, and southeast. Well, there have been arguments that there is economic value in that rail, that rail project. It's a single rail, single gauge rail project. We'll wait and see what happens. The communities are complaining already. Over 3,552 communities are complaining about compensation. So when that will be done, it's a different ball game. And of course, before we talk about the economic value that Nigeria is going to get from it, and then talk about paying back the loan to the African Development Bank.
This way, you had something to say.
Oh no, I was saying, I guess we have the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway as that project. But also when we talk about priorities, I mean, like, we always stress this. We were just reporting on the hundreds of billions of naira going to the satellite towns in the FCT. At the same time, we're reporting on the fact that the doctors in the hospitals in the FCT or medical professionals are going on a 3-day strike because of non-payment of salaries and wages. We're having plaques being put for, I believe, 5 kilometers of road don't forget the terrorist attacks that have been ongoing on these different railroads, and now what more in much more remote areas. It's very concerning, but in the same breath, I also feel like the time is now. How else are we meant to do it? Is there a perfect time to say, okay, this is time for this project? Mixed feelings here on my part.
Well, the projects have to continue, I guess. Especially, this one has already, the money has been borrowed, so it has to be completed.
It has to be completed.
But, it's also important that we connect Nigeria locally.
Very true.
Lagos and the East. Can you imagine what you can do or gain by connecting it by rail?
To be beautiful.
A lot, a lot.
Yeah.
So let's look at Daily Independent. NLC to FG, stop 50% telecom tariff hike implementation. Ask Nigerians to prepare for the administration, for them to compel the hike reversal. Nigeria Labour Congress says this tariff will worsen the harsh living conditions of workers in Nigeria. This certainly will worsen the hardship, we know. At the same time, it's 50% short of the 100% that they have requested, the telecoms operator. So, I don't know how this is going to go, but it doesn't seem like this reversal will happen. Even if it does, maybe not the entire 50%.
Well, I do not know. One cannot blame the telecoms company for asking for a tariff review. If you look at the cost of doing business in Nigeria, so many companies already moved out of the country, then that becomes a clear challenge on for the telecoms company. And don't also forget the impact of the price of fuel at the pump price that has been increased, the impact on the economy, the impact on the daily lives of Nigerians. I traveled, I just returned, and you could see complaint everywhere, whether from the motor parks to individuals to families and community. Everybody is complaining about the impact of the fuel price hike, which, of course, the federal government has not been able to come around to find a solution. Now, if you add that to tariff, whether it is 50%, the telecoms company asks for 50%, and for 100%, if eventually they get through with 50%, that is going to be additional burden on families in Nigeria. And it's going to also be a problem for manufacturing and industrialization effort. Most Nigerians who cannot, who will decide to stay back at home and just put across a call or even send messages, so to cut down on the cost of traveling on the road or even movement. Again, that is going to impact heavily on them. I just hope the federal government is doing a lot, no doubt, but of course, trying to get the economic indices right, I think that is a challenge.
This were Yolanda, and
yes.
You wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was.
Yes.
I wasn't sure the relation with the telecoms data increase and the manufacturing, but I do agree that the telecoms companies do need to increase the tariffs. There's a cost of living crisis. There's an undue burden right now on the Nigerian citizen. Everything is more expensive. Inflation is at over 30%. We've had double-digit inflation for a very long time. But at the same time, these tariffs have stayed stagnant since 2013.
Yes.
Telecoms companies have gotten the lowest lowest amount of investment in nearly a decade last year. And so their infrastructure is crumbling. Our services are horrible. They can't afford to keep going the way they are going.
Even the quality of calls, data,
exactly.
It's poor.
We can't have a service outages with telecoms the way we do with NEPA. We would not be. It's critical. It's absolutely critical that before it collapses, because if the sector collapses, we will also blame government.
Absolutely.
That's why I asked that question. Are you even sure this reversal will happen? I mean,
well, let's look at the merits of the arguments on both sides. Labour says this hike exemplifies government's apparent ease in prioritizing corporate profits over citizens' welfare. It's shocking that the 50% tariff increase was approved within a month, while it took nearly a year to approve the recent minimum wage for workers. Now, that's the point of view of the labor unions. Of course, they'll always stick up for, the Nigerian worker, the common man on the street.
The everyday man, yes.
But the truth of the matter is this. Well, fuel subsidy has been removed. It has brought hardship. But, of course, the telecoms companies need to increase tariffs if they are to function. That's the truth about it. Well, they said they actually demanded a 100% tariff increase, but they were persuaded to make it 50%. So that's fair enough.
We are pressed for time. Let's look at the Punch quickly. Another story. Let's pull up the Punch. Enugu community celebrates Ekweremadu's wife return from the UK. This has been in the news since yesterday. We remember the former Deputy Senate President and his wife was sentenced in the UK for organ trafficking. The wife got 4 years, 6 months. He got 9 years and a couple of months, and the lawyer who was a middleman got about 10 years. Very quickly, I mean, when you look at the Ekweremadu's case, spectacular fall from grace for a high-profile couple that had been in politics for a long time. A lot of lessons learned here, a lot of lessons for us to learn in Nigeria on this.
Well, it's good to celebrate freedom. Beauty Ekweremadu is back to her community somewhere in Enugu State, and everybody is celebrating. The husband is still behind bars, and if you look at the history of that case in the UK 2 years ago, they got somebody, they reportedly procured a street trader in Lagos who is 21 years old, took him to the UK, and then one thing led to the other. They got arrested for plotting over kidney organ trafficking and all of that. The Senator Ekweremadu is in detention. The wife was also found guilty, and the doctor was also found guilty. Now she's back home. I think it's a lesson for all. There's desperation. There was desperation on the part of the Ekweremadu to save their daughter Sonia, who had kidney problem. We don't really get to hear so much about Sonia anymore. I think she's alive. She eventually graduated. I watched a visual sometime where she was celebrating her graduation while the parents were behind bars. That is just life. It's a lesson for all, as you said.
Right. A couple of headlines to go through, very important stories. Let's pull up Daily Sun. We might not be able to discuss it, but let's look at the headlines. It says, Naira crash, domestic borrowing balloon Nigeria's debt to 142.3 trillion in Q3 2024. PDP fresh twist in power play. Then $30,000 EFCC on trail of officer who allegedly looted exhibit room in Kaduna. Then we have Bello Turji's camps in disarray as troops kill second in command 24 others. And NUC upgrades pharmacy, physiotherapy, optometry degrees to doctor status. Then Daily Trust, 1.4 trillion unsold goods recorded in 2024 according to Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. FCT doctors embark on strike over 7 months unpaid salaries. You mentioned that at this one, it's unfortunate, but that's happening. And then on to Vanguard newspaper. Here also talks about the NLC, TUC, CNG, others reject 50% hike. But there's this other story, birthright citizenship. Nigerians in diaspora kick, say it's illegal. Well, maybe it's time to go home and start making sure that your country works. You know, Trump is going to do that. Although it's a constitutional matter, people will go to court, but it looks like that is going to change. It happened also in the United Kingdom, so that's in view. Onto the international headlines. Daily Graphic, no tolerance for arrogance, disrespect, President Mahama tells appointees. Yolanda, you know, that's the way to go. Oftentimes, public officers forget that they are here to serve the public and they behave poorly. But President Mahama says this shouldn't be the case.
Well, I guess we're experiencing President Mahama 2.0. He's definitely learning from, you know, his past experience. And I'm glad to see this. A few, was it months ago or weeks, where we had on Nigerian soil one of our, you know, politicians or House of Reps who, you know, went viral for meting out his own justice on a Bolt driver. And that made,
bullying.
yes,
that was
absolutely.
That was bullying.
So I just thought of that story off the top of my head when I saw this headline. And I think it's very good what they're doing in Ghana. And he's also showing respect towards his citizens and saying, listen, I've got your back. And I think he also mentioned in that story about how, you know, power shouldn't be taken out and used wrongly on citizens. So that's a very good thing, a very big plus for Ghana.
Definitely. On to iNewspaper, gotcha. Prince Prince forces the son to pay out over £10 million. The Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, won an apology and eight-figure sum over son's unlawful intrusion into his life between 1996 and 2011.
Right.
We have his lawyers on the front page there addressing the press. This is a landmark ruling against a powerhouse, a big media house in the UK. In relation to the royal family. It was a tough a court case, but Prince Harry fought to the last. It's just historic, Yolanda.
I look forward to more of these stories, to be sincere, because it just goes to show that you cannot just do what you want and say what you want. There are consequences for your actions, especially for a media house. Absolutely.
All those tabloids.
All these tabloids, exactly, you took the words right out of my mouth. All these tabloids that just say things and run headlines that are, you know, literally clickbait. And they have consequences on the lives of these individuals. So hopefully, even on home ground, we may begin to see things like this in Nigeria. It would be really nice if we could have people being accountable for the things that they say and do.
And to The Guardian, stop war or face tariffs, Trump tells Putin. We can all comment on that briefly. We have less than a minute. Anybody wants to jump in here?
Well, I think I just want to say something here. Don't forget, before the inauguration of President Donald Trump, he did promise that on the first day that he takes office, he was going to stop the Russia-Ukraine war.
Yes.
Yeah, so we haven't seen that happen, but we have also seen the strategy that he's using. One of it was what he deployed to resolve the Israeli-Hamas war in Palestine, when he said, look, you better do a deal, agree on a deal, or all hell will be let loose. And we saw what then happened between him and former President Joe Biden, trying to take credit. So he's also leveraging on those strategies this time, telling his friend, President Vladimir Putin, that look, you either do a deal now, or we shall impose more sanctions on you, and then also put pressure through tariffs on the already sneezing Russian economy. So I think those are going to work, because Russia right now is actually gritting on the floor. The economy is almost, the Russian ruble has lost a lot of value. So if the US president gets through with this threat, then I'm sure Putin is going to be in trouble. So I see that in the days ahead, there may indeed be a deal to resolve the over 2 years Russia-Ukraine war.
Okay, thank you so much, Ekweremadu, a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, our rights analyst, Dr. Constance Ikwoku, for joining us today. That's all the time we have for you here on Daybreak. I'm Adesu Agiwasage.
And I'm Charles Eruka. It's goodbye from me.
And I am Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.